Hello, Abigail here with the astrology for this week. This week, as I said in the last week ahead video, is kind of what we've been building towards. A lot happens in this week. We pretty much have something major kicking off every single day. So just know going into this, it's nothing to be scared of or like apprehensive about. It just means that there's a lot of energy happening. Now, in your own personal chart, you might have some indicators that might, push you towards an abundance of caution. But just know that if you feel like slowing down, that if things get to be too much, I encourage you to take that time to take a deep breath, just because this energy is not going to stop. So it's important that we take care of ourselves. Anyways, we start off Monday instantly with Mercury in Cancer square Saturn. And this is our first square to Saturn since Saturn moved into Aries. So we get to experience this resistance between this new Saturnian moment and Mercury in Cancer. And now Mercury in Cancer doesn't really have, anything technically wrong with it. As we know, when Mercury hits a water sign, it's less about direct communication and more about feelings and expression. So this is about us expressing the feelings and the things that we have been dealing with ever since, Saturn entered Aries not too long ago. And it's also a time to investigate our feelings and what's been going on in that part of Aries, which, if you remember, that beginning part of Aries earlier this year was just constantly getting hit over and over again. So this square is going to bring up Mercury retrograde themes. It's going to bring up Venus retrograde themes. It's going to bring up the Saturn themes that we have been dealing with, and also it's really close to Neptune. So this is happening at the beginning of Monday. At the end of Monday, we have Mercury going into its exaction of a square with Neptune. So just don't forget that when we're talking about Saturn, because Neptune's so nearby, it's all kind of mixed up. So there's also this kind of elusive quality coming in. Knowing how you feel about things might feel a little further away. But this is essentially Aries and Saturn, Neptune and Saturn, not Aries and Saturn, Neptune and Aries. Neptune and Aries, and you can tell that Mercury square is going to hit me hard. It is all about change and activation and transformation. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. This is a fresh, new zodiacal start for both of these planets. And so it is the time to do things differently, to resist the way things have been done before, to turn a new leaf and say, no, we're not going back. And with that Mercury square, we do have to come up against a desire for ease, wanting to kind of sit in our feelings instead of take action. You can do both. You can be connected to your feelings and sit with them and also do what you need to do. With any of these longer transits, especially the Neptune and Aries, it takes a while for kind of the story to get a foothold. So don't feel bad. And also, Neptune is the things that we don't know a lot of the time. So don't feel bad or frustrated if you're not like getting a window into certain things. This is just not the energy for that. It's important to sit with that gut feeling. It's important to sit with rage. It's important to be connected to instinct and what our instincts are telling us. Aries isn't about being thoughtful or methodical or logical. It is about action based on initiation. It is like the spark of breath, like that inhale is Aries. And then when we exhale, that's everything you have to do after that. So just know that this day is going to be a bit chaotic. Thoughts and feelings and the desire to change and also the desire for comfort are going to kind of clash, because when we get planets in Cancer, the beauty of Cancer is this deep ability to like sit and nurture and exist in kind of interdependent things. And it's coming up against Aries that's like, nope, about to go do this on my own. And Saturn in Aries is like, well, you can do this on your own, but like you have to consider everything you're tearing down right now. So yeah, it's a really complicated day. On top of that, in between this Neptune square, Saturn square, we get Venus square. Venus has now entered Taurus. Beautiful. It's in domicile, but now it is going into its square with Pluto and Aquarius at 3 degrees. So once again, because everything is connected, we will be getting callbacks from the stuff that we didn't deal with during the Venus retrograde. This is not time to punish yourself for not making progress. It's just like, oh, these are the things that kind of got sidelined while I was dealing with all those Venus retrograde, Venus in Aries things. And now that I'm in Venus domicile, I get to go back in and take care of and tend to things. Um, so it is difficult because you do have to sit with themes of loss and the crumbling of, stuff that is past its prime. Um, Venus square Pluto is a great time to kind of recognize where you're not being met emotionally, and where you feel overwhelmed and drained in your interactions with other people. Pluto can be kind of a bottomless pit. You can just dump energy into it. And, when we have a square with Venus, it kind of shows us where those bottomless pits are and where we are losing and leaking energy. It also teaches us how to end things and how to graciously move through death energy and destruction energy while also preserving the parts of ourselves that are living and existing. And something that happens between this Mercury square Neptune and words Saturn. I always love it when I talk about mercurial things. I'm a mercurial person, and we have like a square to Neptune where things are not clear. Oh yeah, something I didn't mention about that square to Neptune. I'll come back to this really major astrological point in a minute. Is the lack of clarity and communication. It's going to feel like people are just not giving you what you need. They're going to be giving you stuff. They're going to be throwing things at you. They're going to be very Aryan. I shouldn't say Aryan, very Aries like. But, you know, it's going to be them kind of emotions feeling vomiting versus like, this is how I feel. How can we fix it? So just expect things to be a lot. Expect people to not be communicating clearly. Expect everyone to be in their feelings. My advice for this type of energy is just don't engage unless you have to. Sometimes there are moments for conversation that are good and healthy. And sometimes there are moments where we're like, you know what, this is just how I feel today, and I don't want to kind of deal with it or put it on anyone else. At least that's what I'm going to try to do. Although I find that when I try to do this and the universe has other plans, I am then forced into action within the context of astrology, and I have to learn to navigate it. So don't interact if you don't have to, but know that if this is a lesson you have to learn, you're going to have to participate. Anyways, back to what I was saying, the 9th, which is Monday, is also the day that Jupiter goes into Cancer, which is one of the biggest happy, happy, happy moments of 2025. 2025 has a lot of complex, intense shifts and changes, astrological moments, but this is one of those that does feel purely light and beautiful. Now, if you have planets that are square in opposition, you might feel a little bit of resistance, but overall, going from a detriment Gemini Jupiter to an exalted Cancer Jupiter, completely different. And this is no disrespect to Jupiter and Gemini, but Jupiter and Gemini, you're not going to get what you expect. You're going to think you want something, and then Jupiter's like, oh well, I gave it to you, but in a fun way, and it might not be the way that you were expecting, and it might be a little upsetting or just kind of discombobulating. But Jupiter in Cancer loves to give gifts. It loves to kind of soak and swim and exist in the watery depths of Cancer. It's a moment of more repose. Jupiter kind of tends to give the gifts we desire when in Cancer. It's a really beautiful, gentle Jupiter with a lot of kind of hidden power. It's like a calm ocean, and then underneath there's this massive, existence of life and power and strength in there. So this is a really beautiful time. It's also going to be kicking us into Cancer season. We're going to have a sun conjunction. We are going to have one of the best new moons of this season because it will be a domicile moon conjunct Jupiter. Some really beautiful stuff is going to be happening in Cancer season with this Jupiter. So this is our moment of hope in the midst of all of this complexity. It is going to make things feel a little funky. And also remember that since Jupiter is going to Cancer, it's also going to be hitting these squares. By the end of this week, the Saturn square is going to be kicked off. So that's the Great Benefic and the Great Malefic kind of head to head. So just know where this is heading starting Monday. And then Tuesday, we have Mars trine Chiron. And this is a spicy one. Chiron is an asteroid. Not everyone works with that Chiron. It's kind of more of a modern it has a lot more modern and like recent past 20 years interest. Some people don't work with Chiron at all. Anytime something aspects my Chiron, stuff happens. So I talk about Chiron a lot. And Chiron has been, my Chiron is in Leo and it's been transiting. Um, with its transit in Aries, I've been in a constant Chiron trine and it's been rough. So, I really enjoy Chiron, especially if you are deeply traumatized or have a lot of trauma history. Chiron is a really kind of helpful asteroid to kind of track our pain, which I find really beneficial to have something like that to kind of ground into. A lot of this is not to scare you or anything, but for me, a lot of my Chiron conjunctions have a lot of painful things happen on them. It's also in the 12th house, so it's next is like layers of complexity. But with this trine with Mars, this is about our pain. It is about acting out in protection of our pain. I think the tricky part here is that we might lash out. Make sure that you're lashing out at the right people, right? Don't just lash out at those nearest and dearest. Lash out at people who deserve it. I'm actually of the opinion that you should lash out at people. I'm of the opinion that resentment is fine if someone deserves it. As long as it's not taking over your life, resent them. Hold a grudge, yes, please. You can tell that a lot of my personal planets are in fire signs, actually all of them. It's just as long as it's healthy and you're not harming people who are innocent. So this is a time when our pain gets teeth. My encouragement for you is don't turn it inwards. Don't use this Mars Chiron to kind of gnaw on yourself and blame yourself for things. This is a moment of, activation and standing up for yourself and recognizing where harm has happened and where you do need to kind of send out those protective personal troops and set boundaries and say no. It's also a moment when you need to clap back at people who are constantly hurting others, um, and make things uncomfortable for people who like to harm people. Make things uncomfortable for people who say and do vile things. Honestly, I think we should bring back public shaming, not in the sense of like shaming for who we are, but public shaming for like horrible acts. A good example recently was Two Men on the Train talking about how there is no age limit when it comes to sex. And I'm not very good at those interactions, but I yell at them. It's stuff like that, when someone is deplorable and depraved, to clap back at them. This is also Chiron Mars trine. If you need to um, get moving on plans to take an abuser down, this is a good time to start that. And by the time we hit the Mercury retrograde with Mercury in Leo, and we get through that retrograde and it heads direct, that is the time to then make it public. This is about holding people accountable. This is about connecting to our rage and our pain. And instead of punishing it or critiquing it, seeing it as an honest reaction to our experiences. Rage and frustration and anger, so stigmatized because once you stigmatize something like that, people can't stand up for themselves, but also stigmatized because it harnesses us in this prison of self-destruction. So this is a time to turn that outward. It doesn't have to go directly at people, but rage against violence and harm and cruelty, rage against people who just spread mass destruction and then benefit from it. You can tell I care a lot about this subject, but like, don't turn it inward, is what I'm saying. As someone with Mars in the 12th, also in Leo, do not turn your anger in on yourself. Do not turn your anger outward towards people who are innocent. Harness it to take down those who are not. And, a way we can often speak through our pain is through justice. And that's kind of the beauty of Aries and Libra being on the same axis. When we're talking about Aries, we are also talking about justice. It's just in a different part of the chart. So yeah, use it to fight for what is right and to fight for yourself and to fight for those you care about. And be angry at the way that horrible people behave and how they harm you and your family and your communities. And then on Tuesday, after my spicy rant on Mars trine Chiron, we do have a full moon in Sagittarius. And like the full moon in Gemini, we have some tricky astrology, but we have a beautiful ruler, which I think really helped with that new moon in Gemini, and it's going to help with this full moon. I will be doing, of course, another video with tarot attached for this, but just kind of in brief, it is square the nodes. And when a lunation, like a full moon or a new moon, is square the nodes, and it makes a grand cross when it's a full moon, we get kind of eclipse vibes. We get that eclipsy energy. We're going to see some themes being pulled back in from Aries season as we were wrapping up that eclipse season. We're going to see themes being pulled in from the end of Pisces season where we were beginning that new eclipse cycle. So just know that past life stuff, eclipses, having to face patterns that we keep seeing over and over again. Check where your lunar nodes are to see how this affects you. It's just going to be a really intense moment, and it is going to be hard and very eclipsy. But like I said, we have Jupiter in Cancer, so this is going to be difficulty and struggle with a really nice, benefic peace. So, be ready for it to be hard, be ready for some tough topics, but know that there's a ruler coming in to help that softens all of this and will give us some kind of gift to help us digest and sit with and navigate this full moon. Like I said, I'll tell you more about that in another video. Then on Friday, the sun goes into its full square with the nodes. Once again, this is always difficult. This is about the path you are on. If you are aligning with your values and with the purposes of your lifetimes, if you are with people who are not, I'm going to get a little past lifey here, but who are not in agreement to whatever you two need to do in this lifetime, it's going to start to become obvious. You're going to start to see that these people are just not ready to do the work that you need to do in this moment. It doesn't mean that you have to throw them out, but it might mean that you have to take a step back and prioritize other situations and people and relationships where you're actually getting met, where these are people who are willing to progress and change and shift and step into themselves more and more as time moves on. But yeah, it is a hard thing to go into a square of the nodes because it instantly makes a T-square right after that grand cross with the moon. So just know that this is a little bit of a spicy time. What's interesting is that the outlet for this T-square is also the full moon. So there's kind of a beautiful interworking of what is hard is also going to be really helpful. So don't lose track of that. And then on Sunday, we have Mars square Uranus. Uranus is about to go into, about beginning of July, we'll be going into Gemini for the first time. So this is kind of a little farewell. It's also a bit sad. I think it is going to be a bit of a moment where we see everything that didn't change over that Uranus cycle. I want to say it started in 2011-ish, but it's been a while. I'll have to go back and check my notes. Anyways, Uranus cycles are long, so I do think it's bittersweet. I think there's kind of an action plan going forward and what can continue to be changed, and I do think that there's going to be a bit of sadness in seeing how things haven't changed. And depending on where it is in your chart, it's going to be about certain topics of, like if Uranus is in your 7th, it might be about people who haven't changed in your life. If it's in the 12th, it might be a lot of the blocks and stuff that you've struggled with spiritually and in the hidden parts of your life. So yeah, it's going to be tricky. I think there's going to be a bit of grief involved. Also on that same day, we have Jupiter square Saturn. There's just a lot of resistance, and that kind of the beginning of the week feels, while there are squares, it feels like progressive because Mercury moves faster and we have Jupiter shifting into Cancer, and even that Venus square feels, because of all the work with the retrogrades, feels like we're digesting something and producing something. One second. Reggie, hey, love or no? My dog gets spicy when he's ignored and barks at the neighbors. I love her. No. So this week is full of squares. It is the squariest of squarest weeks, and we have Jupiter square Saturn. This is us coming up against what we want and desire, and what Saturn is like, no, we have to fix it. And we don't just have to fix it, we have to fix it now because it's an Aries. We need to break things now. We need to crash things now. We're going to see a lot of things speed up with Jupiter in Aries, in my opinion. Obviously, it won't quite kick in until it, goes back into Aries in 2026 because it retrogrades in Pisces and the whole thing. But it is this resistance to getting stuff done, while Jupiter in Cancer's like, well, maybe we get it done, but like do it in such a way that we don't get completely battered and bruised and destroyed. And Saturn's like, what are band-aids for? So it is this kind of push and pull between caring for ourselves and the kind of beautiful, softer things in life, and also like a toddler wanting to rage in, a room with porcelain. um, so just know that there is a lot of tension this week. There are also a lot of kind of little cosmic moments where you're going to come in and feel supported. So in this feeling of resistance and struggle and kind of having to fight through stuff, just understand that there is help and hope. Um, and all of these kind of difficult squares that we're going through are setting us up for all of those trines that we will hit with the personal planets in Leo season. And then what we'll hit in 12 months when Jupiter goes into Leo. So there's always, astrology is a cycle. It's never all good, it's never all bad. There's always, in a really hard time, there's always something good about to happen. In a really good time, there's always something hard about to happen. So just hang on. Know that this is work that is necessary to set you up for what you need. These are probably going to be painful realizations, I'm going to be honest. But these are realizations and fights and struggles that you need to have in order to be stable and secure in the future, in order for you to fully individuate and self-actualize and progress in your lifetime journeys and as you move through life with this soul. Not easy, but necessary and deeply rewarding down the road, which, as someone with a lot of fire placements, I'm like, I don't like that it's down the road. I want it now. But it is coming. And I really think that a lot of the change has already come. It just doesn't feel like it because we're so inundated with energy right now. So take your wins where you can find them, rest when you can, and face the things that you need to face this week. Anyway, my loves, if you like my stuff, please like and subscribe. You can always contact me. I offer a plethora of services. I have a Gemini midheaven with the South Node there. It gets crazy. So you can always check those out. I'm always happy to answer any simple questions that don't require, an entire chart reading. But yeah, I'm excited for this week. I will have that full moon video out usually I try to get it out by either the day before or the day before that, just so we have some time to digest. But that will be coming, and I will see you all in a different space and time. Have a blessed week, and put on your fighting gear because we got some fights to win this week. And I have faith in us because we got a really good coach in our corner, Jupiter and Cancer.